All right, you're good to go. Is Joel here? I thought I saw him try to come in.
He's there, but camera off, microphone off.
Okay. Well, Joel, when you get in, we're good to go. The stream's live.
Is Nate coming on?
Kathy, did I hear that Cranston's closed until the first of the year?
Yes, Cranston closed, Situate closed. I think you're going to see most of us this week.
Yeah, it's just an inevitability, I think. Yeah.
You know, there's what, 3,600 cases in 2 days over the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, we just got a ton of cases that are coming in tonight. It's just the staffing. It's the staffing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like trying to hold water in your hand. You just can't do it.
I know it.
All right, Nate,
Nate.
I think Joel might be having some technical issues. He hasn't been able to get into the meeting, but we're live whenever you want to get started.
Hey, Manny, I'm going to put my order in tonight, just so you know. I've been putting it off.
Why don't we just go ahead and call the meeting to order, and Joel can catch up. You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So hang on. I just ran from one thing to another. So let's see. Agenda. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and go right into the OPM update. And Sam, you can take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ben, I'm going to share my screen as soon as you let me.
Yep, you're all set. You should have access now.
Great. All right. All right. Everybody should be able to see the report that Sharon sent out yesterday to the group. So I'll just walk through some of the typical categories. And before we go into the financial side, I do want to do an update on COVID, especially given the conversation that we all were just having. Design and permitting coordination, we're I think finally over the hurdle of our last piece, which was the physical alteration permit for RIDOT. The city council and the mayor approved the easement just recently, as well as the owners of the shopping plaza across Pawtucket Avenue. So at this point, it's just Gilbane and their subcontractor finalizing their bond information to get that back over to RIDOT, so that work can all be kind of set up from RIDOT's perspective. So it's good to get that beyond us. My hope is that this will be off of our list effective next month. Monthly meetings with building officials. We had our last meeting back on the 18th, right before the holiday. We have another update this week. And again, that typically includes members of the fire department as well as the building inspection team to walk the building, get updated on the activities, as well as observe the construction in progress. Commissioning update. The team continues to do recurring visits on the envelope, as well as the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection. We are going to be getting ready to do actually our window testing. So our commissioning agent will be working with the OPM team, the AE team, and the CM team to conduct testing on the windows once everything is complete. So that will include water and air testing of some key strategic locations around the building to ensure that the window assemblies are kind of meeting not only the plan and the spec criteria, but also the commissioning criteria for all those locations around the building. Project milestones, we talked about this last month to get a better sense of the actual completion to date. So this number here reflects the work in place, including retainage. So we're at about 48, just over 48%. The ongoing activities, window glazing, if folks have been out there over the last week or two, they've seen an extensive amount of the curtain walls going up. Those are the much more monumental glazing that's going up on the corners of the stairwells. So you're really starting to see kind of the building enclosure coming into its final form. Key steps with National Grid. We had the gas installed actually just before our meeting last month. And we are installing transformers next week. So that's a big deal to flip us over to permanent power. I believe what we are currently slating is by January to be ready to flip that over once National Grid has set the transformers, which is a key milestone, and then the electrician doing the final runs from those transformers into the building and for those full connections. So that's a pretty big overall project milestone. FF&E coordination, there's been a lot of activity over the last several months, and that's ongoing, including samples that have been placed in the gymnasium. We've had a lot of interactive discussions with AI3, with our furniture consultants, with members of this committee, and members of the school faculty and the leadership team. So it's been, I think, a pretty dynamic discussion that's been going on, and I think we're honing in on that final kind of sample set of everything that we're going to need from a design standard standpoint. Rooftop units, another big milestone in January, and then millwork and casework starting in February. It's not on here, but I would like to just touch base on COVID. You know, the project, and I think we've talked about this right along, has done very well to have, you know, basically no positive cases on the project site itself. We've had several notifications of contact, but those have all resulted up until about 2 weeks ago in no positive cases. That has changed in the last 2 weeks. We've had 5 positive tests in the last few days and 8 over the last 2 weeks. So the Gilbane team does a routine notification. Kathy's getting not as many letters from Gilbane as she gets from the Department of Health, but you know, Gilbane's very diligent. Anytime there is a tracing or a notification of a possible contact, that letter goes to the superintendent. And you know, Gilbane's approach is, you know, all tests are assumed positive until proven negative. So as soon as we even have a contact potential, that employee typically, and Bill can confirm this, but that they take the protocol that, okay, there's a possible positive test on site, cleaning protocol goes into place, and the team works through kind of that on-site contact tracing. Right now, with those positive cases and the contact tracing around those that Gilbane is doing, we're seeing 3 to 4 trades that are actually directly impacted because those notifications went out. They then had to go notify folks that were working in the same area. So right now, the plumbers, the carpenters, and the electricians are seeing this beginning of this kind of spread of not necessarily positive cases, but because there's a handful of positive cases, everybody was contact traced around them. So, you know, we shouldn't be surprised, given the acceleration that we're seeing throughout the community, throughout the country, that the job site is going to have those upticks as well. Right now, we don't know impacts from a schedule or any other perspective, but we do know that it is starting to exponentially increase across the workforce. And it's something that we're going to have to kind of continue to track and stay on top of and understand how that, you know, what impacts that has, whether it's budget, schedule, or anything else. And I know Bill's here if he wants to weigh in on any of that as well. From a financial standpoint.
Sam, excuse me?
Yep.
Can I just go back to project milestones for a sec?
Sure. Yep.
With the rooftop unit start up next month, we'll be getting off temporary heat in January.
I don't know that to be the case, Gene. Let me confirm that. I don't have Eric with me tonight, but I don't know if we're going to immediately flip off of the temp.
Yeah, that's a question I'd like to know, if we're gonna heat part of the building with the rooftop units and part with temporary heat, or how that's gonna work.
Gene, it's certainly not going to end. Anything that we can leverage the permanent system for, we'll want to, because it gives us better heat distribution.
Right.
But I think it would be premature to expect that once we energize it, we'll be able to do a flip.
And I think the other thing too is startup doesn't mean commissioned and kind of completely ready to go either, right? So there is that, Gene, as you know, that complete commissioning a process that's going to happen with those units as well.
Right.
So
If you, for the next month's meeting, if we could know when we're getting off temp heat, that'd be great.
yeah, I think in the big picture, I would say we're probably going to use it all winter. Bill, I don't know if that's a fair assumption, but I would
Yeah,
assume there's going to be portions of the building that are going to.
But you can't do the millwork without some type of heat, so.
Correct.
Well, heat and humidity control, Gene.
Right.
We are
Right.
measuring both in the building now. We have thermometers with the ability to take relative humidity readings too. That's all being monitored now.
But we'll, Gene, we'll try to at least get some sense of kind of the sequencing and the phasing of that to see, you know, will you see certain areas come offline and flip to permanent, or, you know, what that balance will be, at least a projected balance anyways.
Yeah, I'd like to stop paying for it eventually.
Hey, Sam,
Sam.
Yes. Yep.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
Sorry, Nate. I was just going to add a comment, certainly not to contradict anything Sam said. Everything he reported was
Please
completely correct. No, not at all. But just to further your point and Kathy's point too, regarding the progression of these COVID cases. As of Friday, we had 3 positives. As of today, we have 7. We currently have 17 people on the project in quarantine. So to Sam's point, it's changed very rapidly. And I think we all know the trajectory that we are very likely on. And the building is getting enclosed, so I think it's putting the workforce in the building at greater risk too. But we haven't had any on-site transmission that we've been able to determine through tracing, and we are doing all of the contact tracing ourselves.
Thank you, Bill, for the further explanation. Just a snapshot, financial snapshot of where we stand today on contingency, construction contingency and allowance. Contingency, we've drawn down, or with the projected ATPs, we're about another 3% drawn down since, or projected to be drawn down since last month. We're about just under 4% of construction contingency utilization in the last month. And then our owner allowances are actually, we've used another 5.7%. The COVID allowance breakout remains at the same number it was the last month. I think as we explained, Gilbane is continuing to track these costs, but we're not necessarily seeing a hit every month against the allowance. Part of that is just timing of paperwork, but there are, there continues to be those costs put against that allowance, and we continue to review those on a regular basis with Bill and the rest of the team. The look ahead, again, I will use the pictures more to talk through kind of where we are. But in November, we had 17 subcontractor teams on site, 230 workers per day, and about 1,800 and just shy of 1,850 man hours per day for that month. But similar to the last few months, we're seeing a full complement of all of the trades. From site working their way in, still ongoing major earthwork, paving. There was a significant amount of asphalt that was introduced to the site over the last month. They continue to work on the track at the stadium. And then as we come inside or come to the envelope, as I mentioned before, we have continuous work happening around the envelope with installation of curtain walls. Really, the windows are just about complete. And we're, really kind of getting into that closing sequence of a lot of the exterior siding and the exterior envelope components. Interior, we're, just seeing a tremendous amount of progress from south to north and from top to bottom in all of the classroom wings on 3 and 4. Really starting to see some of these common spaces come together. Here are 2 photos here of the student common space. Again, wide open now. This will all start to become enclosed, but it gives you a sense of the volume of that student common space. Another great one is the auditorium. Although you have this decking in here for some of the work that's happening up in the ceiling, the space and the volume of that room is very apparent as you walk in there. Some of the less exciting stuff, but equally important, is a lot of the introduction of the tel data. So you have your MDF room and IDF rooms coming online. Major work on the electrical, especially getting in preparation for the transformers that we talked about that are going to be landing on site next week. Stairs, missed metal work around those stairs and some of the open 2-story spaces. And then just some of the work out on the site itself. So for folks, I know we've had a couple tours over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Really the space just continues to, if you take 2 weeks off, a lot happens out there. So, I continue to encourage folks to get out there when they can to kind of really see how that space is developing and how everything's coming together.
Or do we want to?
Right.
Right. We've got a workforce that's increasingly more vulnerable, impacted, and certainly critical to keeping us on track. Do we want to take a look at maybe, I don't know, cutting the tours or holding the tours at bay until we feel more comfortable where this is going?
Yeah, or you could do them at a little bit different times too, Nate, if we're trying to prevent any exposure. But again, yeah, that very much up to the building committee. So I don't want to promote any bad decision making by any means.
Would there be times, Sam, where, as you mentioned, it'd be less workforce out there, it'd be appropriate for tours, like getting closer to the holiday?
Yeah, I think in general, Bob, after 3 or 3:30 is when we see most of the trades cleared out based on their work day and their work hours. That is also obviously, daylight's diminishing at that point. But I think that would limit or eliminate any of that kind of crossover between, say, a tour and the trades people that are out there obviously on a daily basis.
I haven't been out there for about a month and a half, and I'd love to get out there time again, but Nate is correct. We should minimize our interaction with the trades as much as possible. So if you could let me or other people know on the building committee when a good appropriate time would be for the next tour, that'd be nice.
Sunday mornings are always good.
What's
So my
that?
2 cents, safety first, right?
Yeah.
Sunday mornings are always good. No one's around.
At church.
It's okay with me.
When the building's empty, we could always send a camera through too and make it a virtual tour if people prefer to keep.
I think that's an awesome idea.
Watch a 5-minute video.
We certainly could. We certainly could look at a weekend timing too.
It would be
Bob
wonderful.
and team,
Yeah.
maybe to help alleviate that. So let me talk to Eric about some windows of time that we could set up, in the coming 2 to 3 weeks.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Saturdays, generally, crews are still working. It's obviously a diminished workforce, but crews are working.
Yeah, and Bill, we would obviously we'd work with you guys on, even if it was a Saturday, making sure that it's either the second half of the afternoon or whatever that might be. But
Right.
Absolutely. Whatever works for folks, we'll accommodate.
Yeah, I think, Sam, if it's possible, I don't know to the extent that, I imagine we're tracking everything with, contact tracing and everything else. But is it possible for me and Joel to get a heads up on, who we're looking at least for the next month? I'd like for us to take on an agenda item maybe next month to look at, if not a formal policy, but at least a set of procedures for, building committee is one thing. I don't think we want, a cast of hundreds just because they want to see what it looks like, getting
Right.
an opportunity to go on through there. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah, especially heading into these colder months with everything that's going on and the building being much more enclosed than it has been in the past.
Just imagine how excited you'd be if you took a couple months off and then went in.
Yeah, that'll make it even more exciting.
Yeah, I didn't, personally, I didn't stay inside for 9 months to blow it in the last couple.
Right. Right.
But Gene, if you just think back to 6 months ago, June, we were still erecting steel. Nothing was enclosed.
Right. Yeah.
It's been pretty dramatic, pretty quick.
And a year ago, end of January, we weren't even above the ground line yet. So tremendous amount of progress and activity out there. Budget update. So last month we didn't have any adjustments in the adjustment column. This month we did mention though that there was a change pending. That change is now posted in this month's. So that 87,893. And again, every time we have a change here, we're going to show that adjustment in the increase in the GMP contract, as well as a reduction in the contingency line item. We do have another OCO 0005 that is also pending. So we'll see another round of activity coming out in next month's report as well. Just to scroll down.
So before you go off that page,
Yep.
43% of total project budget compares to the 48.3 of construction percent complete, correct?
Correct. So that's that retainage. So the
Right.
48 is the true work to date. The percentage here is just paid to date.
So we're 5% ahead of the game.
Yep. Yeah, which almost ties perfectly with that 5% holdback, plus or minus. Obviously, it filters down depending on where those trades are.
And if we were to ask for a rough estimate of percentage by schedule, are we looking at the percent complete? We're looking at actual physical work complete, or are we looking at a schedule number?
This is work complete, not schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. This is really just, it's a straight math takeoff. And even at the top of the report, Nate, would be the work in place to date. And as you can imagine, there's a bell curve that's been happening. It's going to continue to happen as you kind of go through the winter. So the two don't necessarily, I mean, they do correlate, but not specifically over time, because you're going to have an increase month over month in the expenditures. Especially as you start to bring in all the trades, all the finish guys, all the millwork guys, as we go through the spring.
But you always want to stay ahead on the percent construction complete.
Is it possible for us to track the schedule number going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's, we could work with Gilbane on it. They report out purely on the work in place. That's how their report reports out. Because again, 1 month might have twice as much activity as the previous month. But Bill, maybe we can talk through kind of a schedule ratio that we could also add to the report. You're still muted.
I thought I undid it. Sorry.
Undid it, all right.
And then just
Sam,
yes, sir.
this is going to sound a little weird, but at what percentage completion are we aiming at for a successful move-in? Because I'm assuming that, the demolition is going to be a percentage that will not be complete when we move in. So are we looking at, somewhere mid-90s or?
I was going to ask the same question, Manny. I was just
Manny,
with the phase 2 and phase 3 stuff, if it fits in there.
Yeah, so it's not just demolition and abatement, it's actually all the remaining site work. So we could do a quick analysis to give you a target of where we will be at occupancy versus against the total construction budget. And again, all these roll up down to this number. Some of these numbers are going to trail, and some of these numbers are going to be pretty kind of consistent with the rest of the work too. So, but the construction progress and those construction numbers are the best to give you a monitor of kind of where the project is. But we can do that as another side analysis.
Thanks.
And I don't want to throw out numbers here because I'll get them wrong. No matter what I would say. And then just our last sheet here, just kind of tracking the changes. I mentioned OCO 0004 that was approved and processed last month. That had a series of adds and deducts to net with an $87,000 change order to the overall project. This is just a quick roll up of everything. There was actually dozens of items on that OCO, but there was roof drain, exhaust work, sprinkler adds and deducts, and a bunch of other miscellaneous items that get smaller incrementally to add up to that total. So happy to answer any questions. I know Justin's waiting in the wings for the next conversation, but whatever the committee has for us, we're happy to answer.
Just quickly, do we feel like we're on track? I know, Sam, you mentioned the various sessions that have been going on for FF&E. Do we feel like we're on track for the contracting portion of that enterprise, if you will?
Yeah, I think we're crunching a lot of work into December and January to get ready for that bid package. So and Justin can weigh in too. I know Justin's on the call. I think we are on track. We're making some adjustments this month with some of the sample furniture that came out. So we quickly have to kind of make that turn and get that back and, get the documents correct, make sure that we've got the right basis of design information in there so that we can get everything ready. Justin, I don't know if you have any comments on that from a schedule standpoint.
Yeah, as far as schedule goes, we're still on schedule to go out to bid roughly for January or so for FF&E, and that will give us an install date July, August, basically before students are in. So we're still on track for schedule, and we're just, like Sam said, we're just wrapping up the loose ends and making some final tweaks based on mock-up reviews at this point.
Do we have any information, Justin or Sam or Bill or really anybody, about limitations on materials and availability of certain types of items? I imagine that's probably going to be a decision point for us when it becomes time to award that bid, just because we think something is the ideal thing for the building. If it's delayed by 6, 7, 8 months or something, then we might have to shift gears.
Yeah, we actually had this conversation quite a while ago with our consultants for both furniture and equipment, and they have seen an uptick in time, but not significantly. And that uptick actually is included in that schedule. Okay. So we do have a little bit of a buffer in there for COVID, any of those delays. So as long as we don't get surprised by any of it, we should be good. But there is a little bit of buffer in there.
Yeah. Jim mentioned it, when we talked about FF&E several months ago, 4 or 5 months ago. I just want us to continue to keep an eye on it, because it'd be a shame for everything else to not fall into place, but to be put into place. And that's the thing that kills us, if you know what I mean.
Yep, understood.
Nate, on the construction side, we've had the good fortune of not experiencing any significant issues other than what we incurred in the very beginning. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we've got pretty good control of everything right now. We certainly are not aware of issues. I would be more concerned about materials that aren't yet fabricated and what the consequences may be of events over December, January, and how that might impact manufacturing down the line. That's
Just,
what's gonna have to be monitored.
Justin, I had another question about the FF&E, if I could. Nate raises a great question. Would we, by that January meeting, I'm not sure what the date is of our January meeting, would we be able to get a sense from you of anything that may be changed, that buffer zone may be used up a little bit, or it's on target? In other words, just give us a status update in our January meeting of where you are with FF&E.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I just made note of it. I'm in constant contact with our consultants, and I will make it a point tomorrow to touch base to see if they've heard anything new regarding delays or anything like that. But we can definitely give you an update in the January meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Nate, back to one of your original questions, I think the other thing will be is that schedule will be part of the bid that goes out on the street. So let's just say that there was a specific type of chair that we were looking for, but the vendor came back and said it's a 16-week fab and then it's another 10 weeks to deliver. Then we're going to be able to have that analysis, and when Justin and the team do their bid leveling, they'll be able to take that into consideration. And that may be a pivot point where we say, okay, this is what we wanted to do. There's a or equal that we're willing to go with that doesn't have time constraints. Does the ownership team want to do that? So that'll be part of that dynamic evaluation of the bids as well.
Okay. I guess last question on this, not to beat this to death, but just encourage everybody to cast a wide enough net on there, right? I mean, and maybe to sources that you wouldn't always be inclined to solicit, just because there might be somebody out there with some magic dust or something that can pull off something that one of your typicals can't.
Yeah, and this will be publicly advertised too, Nate. So it's not like this is going to an exclusive list.
Yeah,
it'll get broadcast, and the AI3 team and their consulting team will also make sure that all the vendors that they work with are aware of the bid, so that you get as wide of a net as possible for the potential bidders to come in on that.
Okay, are they aware it's coming generally?
Based on the calls we get on a weekly basis, I think.
Okay.
So.
Yep. Good to go.
Yeah, I'm sure this is on everybody's radar.
Okay.
But what we would suggest, Nate, is that you do an advertisement in the journal. You're going to post it on your site. You're going to post it on the Newport site, and then you're going to have the content experts, especially on the AI3 side, pushing it out to their network to go look at the EP website for the RFP that just hit the street or that it's about to hit the street.
Copy.
Yeah, I have just one question on the FF&E for Justin. It's probably more of a statement than a question, but many times when there's any type of delay, you see costs go up also. So when you're quizzing your consultants or anything, please include that in your conversation.
Will do.
We need to know that if we're seeing significant delays, then we need to know if we can offset with additional monies.
Right. Will do.
Yeah, and Gene, I think what our approach has been in the past, and I would ask AI3 the same question, is you want to try to build in a little bit of that actually into the RFP that gives you that float. Obviously, if it was a significant delay, then you're going to see those costs of storage or whatever it is that might be incurred. But I think it's a good thing to get out there as upfront in the request as well as just in the conversations with the vendors.
Yeah, we do carry a contingency for unforeseen conditions, something along those lines. So, yep, there is some buffer built in.
Thank you.
So that concludes my presentation. So I'll turn it back over to the chairs.
All right. So next item up is, and I think Joel's on. Yep, there he is. Okay. So next item up is the A&E update.
I think that's you, Justin.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just share my screen.
Oh, just a moment. Let me give you co-host. Okay, go ahead, Justin.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So signage package overview. Just want to give you guys a quick run through of what was discussed and what we presented. But before I jump into the actual sort of signage review, I just wanted to have a few overarching comments. So the signage package for this project was created specifically for this project. It's not a copy paste from any of our other projects. Graphics and text were selected and designed to engage students, create excitement and energy, provide wayfinding opportunities, and to foster school pride and a sense of ownership within the building. We began this process by taking what you already had established, so your EP letters, your county red, your county pride, and implemented them into the building. From the very beginning, we knew a design opportunity was the scale of the building. It's a very large building. And what I mean by that is how to create a unified signage package that was custom to East Providence. So all signage elements needed a framework. The building is just too large not to have one. So as we were developing the package, it became pretty clear that history was a large part of this community. We ran with this and implemented a triangle overlay as the unifying element for the signage package. The three sides of the triangle was derived from the three schools, the original 1884, the current 1952, and the future 2021. So the triangle, it doesn't only provide framework, but also excitement, interest, and energy throughout. So those are the overlying or underlying rather concepts and where everything is coming from. Moving into the actual signage for the project, we'll run through some examples. So this is an example of what's going to be in the main admin suite. It's a low wall, and the upper part of the wall is actually glass. This will be behind the administrative staff desk, and it'll have your East Providence Townies logo with county red. Moving into the sort of main focal point of the building, this is a handful of signs that is right outside Student Commons. It's right at the main intersection of the main entry and the main corridor. So this is visible for all the students. It's visible for all the public who enter. It's the center hub of the building. So we wanted to highlight some of the sustainability items of the building. This is also a CHIPS requirement, and you'll see some of those throughout the presentation. CHIPS has specific requirements. So the first and on the left side where it says sustainability kiosk, that's actually an interactive monitor. So participants can go there, it's a touch screen, and they can click on items of the building and see actual real-time live data, water usage, energy usage, gas usage, anything along those lines. Following around the corner from that is where it sort of turns blue, and you'll see on the bottom part where it's a little bit longer, this is the first part of the history aspect of the project. So there's two of these. This first one here is of the city. So there's some facts about the city, and as you can see, the triangles with the sort of the unifying element throughout. There's also some images of town, some dates, and some important facts of the city. Opposite of the ones that I just went through, we have this large green sign here in the upper right. This is on the back side, or it's, if you're facing the green kiosk, the interactive display, this is right behind you. So on one side, you have the interactive display. On the other side is this sign here. It's a static display. And this is really highlighting the site elements, the sustainable site elements for the project. So it's your electric vehicle parking, it's your greenhouse, it's your stormwater detention. It's items like that that are outside of the building. So right when occupants enter the building, they can see right away that this building is sustainable and that it's a priority for the project. Similar to the other side, where it turned blue and transitioned to the history of the city, this one is rotating through, and it's the history of the school. So this is where you can see images of the original 1884 building, the current 1952, and then a rendering of the 2021. This is a 3D element, how you can see how they sort of wrap on both sides. Through the main corridor right in front, that's out to the main entry. So as you can imagine, people walking through, they're sort of flanked on each side with your towny red, with the sustainable elements, and then they can transition to the history items within the building. Throughout the project, we have inspirational quotes and words, as well as East Providence logos. For instance, the one on the left, the EP, that one is actually on the main level between the student commons and the athletic wing. So if there were any occupants walking back and forth, whether it be students or public, they would be able to see this. And then there's some other instances for graphics and text throughout. For instance, this one, be strong, be brave, be humble, and then strive for greatness. These are located throughout the building.
Justin,
Yep.
On that one, wasn't that the one we spoke about that we learned that on the EP that's more of a three-dimensional?
Yes, correct. Yeah, so the EP is, most of these are vinyl graphic, like be strong, be brave, be humble. It's a vinyl graphic. So it's printed and then it's rolled out and adhered to the wall. The EP is actually a 3D graphic. So think of it, it's a thick acrylic that's back painted and then it's mounted to the wall. So there is a 3D element to it. And it's not just vinyl sort of slightly cut around the logo. So, yep, that is correct. Just another example of the triangle wayfinding element here, noting school store and how it applies to the glass as well. You can see it in action here, how it transitions a corner, really creates movement and excitement, as well as the wayfinding opportunity for this sign. Here's an example of the metal letters within the building. Spaces that are identified as dedicated have these letters. They're adhered to either glass or to the wall. For instance, Media Center and the band room are to glass. The auditorium is to the wall directly above the doors. This is an example of the student commons. Student commons is a really large space, so we were looking for ways to make it lively and also sort of provide some inspirational words. We find these large inspirational words actually very helpful, and we've had really good positive reviews with a lot of this stuff, and it just creates a sense of community within it. So here in Student Commons, it's collaborate, innovate, respect, and connect. And then you can see how the towny red, as well as the tones of gray are tied in. Additionally, we have recycle stations throughout. I mentioned the CHIPS requirements for the green kiosk. We also have recycle station requirements. So to highlight these requirements, every recycle station has this graphic signage over it to promote recycling, to reduce waste in the landfill, and to really push that concept forward.
Hey, Justin,
Yep.
Are you comfortable enough to say that wherever there's graphics that are in red, it's towny red?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the images like this one perfectly right to the point on the screen. Obviously it's the computer rendering, it's slightly off, but it will all be the towny red.
So to that point, right, because I think that's what everyone prefers, but issue that we've had with towny red in the past is it quickly, maybe not quickly, but eventually fades into chewed bubblegum pinkish gray. What are we looking at here in terms of longevity?
Yeah, so these are all high quality paints. It's also high quality printing on the vinyl. The fade on these is minimal. Additionally, if there's any direct glare, daylighting is actually a huge part of chips. So there are ways of reducing direct glare and daylighting, which is the cause of the fading to the bubblegum pink. So just the building itself should address most of the fading concerns.
Yeah, if you look at the exposed steel on the addition, the high school, that faded into LaSalle maroon. I just don't want that to happen again.
Yep, no, makes sense. On the exterior, it's primarily aluminum letters. And even where we'll get to some of them, even like the vinyl at the walking track, the Big East Providence, that's actually a gray or a white. I can't remember exactly, but it's not the towny red, so it won't have a chance of fading. So we also have some signs that are program specific. For instance, we have engineering and visual arts right here. These are located in the center of the building, basically right behind the space. And you will actually see these walking down the hall. So this will be visible at the end of the hall. So it draws excitement and wonderment, and it gets people moving like, okay, I see the sign, what is down there? Obviously engineering is more of it's represented as more of the technical, the mathematical, the straight lines, and then the visual art is more organic and free form for those graphics. These are both on the second floor. In the same locations on the third and fourth floor, we still have the same corridors, but instead of highlighting the engineering and the visual arts portion, because those are only on the second floor, we established these 4 words, innovate, collaborate, teamwork, and leadership, and are using those as words for the signage elements here. So these are how they wrap the corner as well. So as you're walking down the hall, you'll see the words, you'll see the red, and it will draw you in, and then it will sort of turn the corner to promote movement throughout the building.
And that's kind of what I was leading to. See that red as compared to the stripe on the ground? Is that more of a maroon or is that a red?
Yeah, that background red, let me check on that. The way we have to put these in the model, it's a little bit different. So let me check to make sure, but yep. Here are some additional chip signs.
Justin, can you go back to the previous signage?
Yep.
One of the things I had a question about was longevity, wear and tear by students. Those outside corners that you see of there, I'm not talking about the vinyl. What is the outside corner material and how will it protect the various artwork and vinyl pieces that you have?
Yeah, so
rubbing it against it, hitting it, whacking it.
Yep. Yeah. So the vinyl is actually, it's pretty thick and it's very durable. One thing that we do here is we don't actually wrap the vinyl around the corner as you see here. So the left side, because it's just a solid color, that would actually be paint. The side with teamwork, leadership, vision, where the text is, that would be the vinyl. We would have them hold off the edge of the vinyl from the corner, 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch. That way you don't have that little lip sort of sticking out and to be able to get caught. Because that is a big concern with backpacks or people just brushing up against it. And then once it starts peeling, then they're just going to rip the whole thing off. So we have them install it with the edge a little bit back from the corner, so you don't have that sort of lip that they can catch on.
So is the edge just a metal edge? Is it a plaster edge?
It's a drywall edge. So it's a corner bead and it's drywalled over.
Okay.
Yep. And the lower part is tile, where you see most of the abuse. So the lower 3 feet is tile.
32 inches high?
Yeah, I think it's 3 feet.
3 feet.
Yep. And then above that is the drywall.
You think we might consider either a vinyl corner or a metal corner?
Yeah, or like a Schluter strip or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, because I've seen you or I, we have this problem all the time, is where it gets whacked, hit, backpacks, shoes, whatever it may be. It always ends up being damaged unless there's a firm, hard edge to that outside corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the corner bead here, it is a metal corner bead. It's just skimmed over smooth with the drywall. So there is metal behind it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, but I'm talking more of an outside edge. Wanna,
Yeah, how does the vinyl sit into it, right, Gene?
right,
That's what you're talking about.
something to think about.
Yep.
Better do it soon, though.
So moving on, some more green signage. All of the toilet cores are water conservation signs and stuff. These are all throughout the core of the building. Electric hand dryers, low flow fixtures, battery operated valves. These are throughout, and this is another CHIPS requirement. Throughout, we have 4 clusters of science labs, 2 on the 3rd floor, 2 on the 4th floor. They're pretty much the same with a few exceptions to allow for flexibility for programming and for what room is used for what specific science purpose. Because of that, we didn't want to put any text on these to label this is chemistry, this is biology. Whereas we wanted to provide the graphics to sort of imply it, but it doesn't necessarily lock in the actual trade. So these are 2 of them. We've just flagged them as biology and physics because that's how they currently are on the floor plans. But obviously any sort of science discipline can occur in the rooms. And here are the other 2 for earth science and chemistry. And then I believe here's an example of them implemented. So the image on the left, the door that you see, and then there's a little alcove to the left again. Those are 2 entries to the science classrooms. So you'll see how it sort of embeds within that area. And then on the right, additional recycle signs are embedded in some of these science graphics as well. Moving to the exterior for a couple sign pieces. Here's the exterior banners. They're at the end of the building, both the north and the south, so by stair 1 and stair 4. And it's to draw attention to the Performing Arts Wing entrance and the Athletic Center wing entrance as well. Here's the exterior lettering that I mentioned previously. This is the walking track around the gymnasium. And we have almost 6-foot-high letters, East Providence High School and Townies, actually in vinyl on the glass. It's on the number 2 surface, so it's protected. But this is large scale, and this is actually visible from the stadium. So this will be really, really cool and really, really powerful. The bleachers will be in front of this, and this will be visible above the bleacher. So this will be what you see from the stadium. And then here's just a view of the end of the building. You can see the large East Providence on the walking track, and then you can see how the banner sort of caps off the end of the building by stair 1 in this instance.
So Justin, that's the north elevation of the building.
Yes. Yep. This is the north elevation. The south elevation would be similar minus the walking track and the text part.
Can you go back one slide, please?
Justin, that EP, is that 3-dimensional also?
No, the East
Yeah.
Providence High School, the letters in this slide.
Yes, it's backlit. No, you're talking about the EP on the north side of the
yes.
building.
Yes.
Yes, the EP is 3-dimensional and it's backlit on the building.
Are the letters on the glass, East Providence and Townies, is that in gray or is that in red?
That is in, I will have to check, but it's either white or gray. It's not in red. That way we don't have the potential for fading. Because it is on the interior of the glass, meaning it's between layers of glass. So there is not really a chance to change it out if it does fade to the pink that you're referring to. So we wanted to avoid that. So it's either like a white or a gray.
Gene, you had a question on that?
I need you to go back one slide, please.
Yep.
Is the spacing between school and townies intentional?
Yes, it's to emphasize townies on the end.
Okay.
It seems a little far away.
Yeah, it's got a different spacing than the other words, that's all.
Yeah, my suggestion also is that the gray would really fade away. White lettering would stand out very nicely for the opponents who are worried about us on the field of play.
Because the visitors are looking right at this.
I want it to really pop off the page, and so the white letters would help do that.
We could get some flashing little lights and put it on the letters.
Okay, Gene, okay.
Easy.
I have a you may be covering it. Do we have a symbol on the center of the football field turf? Or is it-
Well, that is in landscape scope. It's not in this presentation.
Okay, but do you know if there is?
I imagine, but I honestly would have to check
Okay.
and see.
I'll ask Eric tomorrow.
Yeah, we can check, Gene, but I'm assuming
Yeah.
that you'll have the emblem kind of set up right in the,
That's what I'm
stitched right
hoping.
into the turf.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, there typically is something. So. Okay, moving on to the athletic wing of the building. Here are some instances of the signage in the athletic lobby. So we have the EP again, Home of Townie Pride, and then the two images on the bottom are actually custom to your school among all of the others. But these are actually really unique in that these are photographs of East Providence athletes that are embedded within the triangle scheme and then surrounded with the Townie Red, East Providence High School. And they're followed up with these, as you can see in the upper right, this trapezoidal shape. This is actually plexi on standoffs. And these go over the vinyl and they highlight a handful of sports and the years that championships are won. So on the right side is the girls' sports side. It's right outside of the girls' locker room. So it highlights the female athletes and then 3 of the sports that they've been awarded championships. And then on the left side, similarly, is the boys' side, right outside the boys' locker room. Again, with additional championships noted. So the way that the trapezoidal pieces were designed is that as championships are won, additional text, additional years can be added to it until they get filled up. So it's sort of it's a snapshot in time, but it allows for future expansion. This is on the opposite side of the locker room walls, sort of flanking the athletic lobby. And these are above the laptop charging stations. That's why you see about a 7-foot, 8-foot or so white blank space. That's where all of the laptop charging stations are going, right centrally located in the athletic lobby. But right above that, we have a 3-foot high band of additional signage to further emphasize this is the athletic wing of the building. And you can see again, additional East Providence athletes within the triangle scheme, as well as punches of the Townie Red throughout. Moving into the gym, these are some banners. The top one is behind the bleachers and the bottom one is at the short ends of the gym.
Hey, Justin,
And-
quick question.
Yep.
The photos of the individual athletes that you've got on there.
Yes.
Are those just stock footage? Or are those actual EP kids from past?
Those, yeah, those are actual EP kids. We reached out to your local photographer and we touched base and he sent us a slew of images that we could pick from. So we have as many sports, actually, I think most, if not all sports represented, both male and female, sort of mixing it up throughout. But yeah, those are actual East Providence athletes.
Do we have a kind of a good cross section of diversity, right? And I mean, reflects the school, representation of the school itself.
Yep, that is one thing we also were looking for when we were selecting the images is the diverse population throughout. So yep, that is definitely one
As
of the-
well as age in terms of going back years into the high school. So it's just not contemporary over the last 20 years. It was back further or what?
So these are probably within the last 5 or 10 years. I would have to check. As far as obtaining high quality photos, it gets a little bit more difficult going further back because these are going to be blown up significantly. But that is something that I could reach out to my contact and see how old they go back to see if we have any older versions.
It would be great because there's been some great athletes from EP High School
Yep.
throughout the years, and just over the last 5 years wouldn't be representative of the high quality athletic ability that our students have had.
Right. Yep, that's a good idea.
Like a real dumb question, but I like to think out of the box sometimes. Since we're going to be displaying minors, is there any concern about displaying these minors in a public building without their consent?
Yeah, we actually had talked about that at the meeting, and we'll discuss it tomorrow morning to see the step forward if there are waivers and or if there are any of these individuals that should not be on the wall for whatever reason. But we can discuss that at tomorrow morning.
Maybe they're in jail now.
Exactly, and we were looking for a little bit of a review to see if that was the case on these, and we could swap them out. So
that's always the difficulty in trying to pick you just don't know what you're getting into. It's very difficult.
Right. So what is up on the screen now? That's an example of the gym. As you can see, it's bordered by Townie red. Townie's at the end goals, and the center court logo again, Townie red with Townie's written on it. What we did here, I'm sure you guys remember clearly, the gymnasium ceiling in this project is actually flat, and we wanted to keep it as clean as possible. We didn't want to see any of the stuff that you typically see, and that became a challenge with banners. So typically you have banners hanging from the rafters, literally the rafters or between the rafters, or the ducts or around the ducts or cables. Because the ceiling is flat and we wanted to keep it that way, these are the banners that we're actually locating around the perimeter of the gym rather than hanging from the ceiling. This allows the ceiling to be clean and clear of all of those items, but also it allows viewers to see the banners closer up. And what we're proposing is the banner similar to what is in the upper right, and it's a vinyl banner, and as additional years are won for championships, additional years can be added to these banners. So these would be around the perimeter of the gym, within reach of viewing, and it would allow people to see, but also to keep the ceiling clear, as we had originally shown in the renderings.
Justin, that's basically on the hallway, on the, I guess the west facing.
Yes. Yep.
Side, right?
Yeah.
Because, right, because the other side, the bleachers would be too tall, and I know that there's another logo there. But second question I have is, are we, from a cost standpoint and so forth, are we duplicating? I like the banners. It's kind of traditional with what we have now, and a newer, cleaner, nice clean layout. What's the purpose of having those triangular plaques out in the hall?
So the triangle plaques are to highlight some of the sports. Obviously, you have quite a few banners, some around 35, 40 banners. We wanted to highlight some of them in the hall, so we selected 3 from each, the men's and the women's, to highlight those sports. So that was the intent. We could remove them if you felt so inclined, but it highlighted some sports, but it also added some depth to it because they were on standoffs off the wall, and to sort of enliven that space a little bit.
I actually like the pictures of the students out there with the sports.
Yeah,
I think
not the picture.
Personalizes it. I do think it personalizes it a little bit. And if I remember in our presentation, they said that those could be changed too. Am I correct?
Yes.
Updated.
Yep. Yeah. That trapezoidal piece, it's vinyl letters on plexi. So you can add years to it. If you decide that you want to switch it out in the future, instead of girls volleyball, you wanted boys baseball, you could have a plaque made up, obviously keeping the boys side and the girls side.
Kathy, we're not talking about the pictures. We're talking about that top right that trapezoidal plaque that basically has the sport, the years. It's basically same information as a banner that would be inside.
Right.
I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about removing, not liking the pictures.
No.
Okay.
No, and again, I'm just asking the question. I mean, if you're talking about 6, I would imagine it's not a substantial cost. I'm just.
Yep. Okay, sorry.
You know what though, and I don't want to throw it off, but Joel, Kathy, this probably speaks to a bigger thing that, you know, we're going to have to think about through the school committee and through the administration in terms of policy for updates, in terms of policy for, you know, the new banners become available. They're no longer the size and shape of the banners that we have up there, and we've run out of space. You know, things like, you know, what can go on the walls, what can change over time. I mean, that might need to be something that gets codified in a school department policy, right? So you can't just have any old person sticking something up there because they think it looks good. It's got to be consistent with the overall design, because there's been a lot of thought that went into exactly how this building looked and was branded.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point, Nate. That is one of the reasons why we wanted to get away from your traditional banners hanging from the ceiling, particularly being with red fades, especially on fabric. By using the method here, it allows for future expansion, but also when they reprint, they can match the colors a heck of a lot easier than matching fabrics, particularly with fabric that has faded over time. So we see banners of all colors, even though they're supposed to be the same green or red or blue, whatever they may be. But what we're providing here is a way to actually match in the future. So if you add a sport 10 years from now, you can actually get the banner to look like it was installed from day one. So.
Justin, how are those affixed to the wall? Are they glued or?
Yeah, so these are vinyl. It's heavy duty adhesive. On the back of the vinyl, it's essentially glued to the wall. Yep.
Tell me why we can't hang those again.
So these are vinyl on the wall. If we hung them, they would need to be fabric, and they would be only around the perimeter of the outside, and they would start encroaching on the max height for sports, for volleyball and basketball. So we wanted to keep the ceiling as clean as possible to give the max height for your sports.
Okay, fair enough.
Moving along, just a couple additional chip signs, additional green performance of the building, water usage information, and this is actually right outside the main toilet core for the athletic wing. So as visitors come to see, they can also see how sustainable the building is. This is the athletic center glass. Again, using the triangles to invoke motion, but also color and pattern. And moving that forward. This is on the glass, and it's actually visible from both the corridor side and the fitness center side. So you'll be seeing a mirror image of this from inside the space.
I volunteered so they could use my body shape.
That's what you've been doing in this downtime?
Yeah.
They're looking for digital files soon, so we'll get a hold of you, Gene.
Okay.
Within the space, we have some inspirational quotes around the upper part of the room. Obviously, they're going to be throwing weights around and stuff, so we didn't want anything low for durability purposes, but these are all up higher. Inspirational quotes and to liven it up with some color. Moving forward, specific programs within the building. This one's for automotive technology. So the left side of the door is sort of the history of the transportation industry, and then moving to the right side is the future. So whether it be self-driving cars, electric cars, something along those lines, and there's even reference to and beyond, like what else is out there, because nobody knows at this point. So It's sort of where it's been and where it's going. Health occupations, this wall is between the entrance to the dental lab and the entrance to the medical assisting. And it references images that you typically see in the profession. Construction is similar to the automotive, sort of the history, where it's going, also noting trades and careers within the field. Here is the Hall of Fame. So now we're shifting towards the performing arts wing of the building. And this is actually, the Hall of Fame is located within the main lobby along the corridor. And we have accounted for roughly 400 plaques on the walls. And you can see sort of the enlarged gray plaque in the middle. These are going to be printed on metal, 7 inches wide and 10 inches tall. And then they're going to be mounted to a laminate, the red laminate that you see. Currently, you have roughly 200 or so plaques. So we did account for expansion in the future as you guys see fit. But we did want to show you this and basically the extent, and it's roughly, we've accounted for 400 plaques. And that's how it sort of looks along the auditorium and performing arts corridor. The door on the left is coral. The door on the right, the first one down, just on the other side of that brown trophy case, is the band classroom. Moving to the opposite side of the hall from those Hall of Fames, this is the last image or the last signage type that we'll look at. This is outside the auditorium. So the auditorium is a unique element of the building. Obviously, we can't have windows or anything looking from the corridor into the space for obvious reasons, light and sound. But we really wanted to show people things that can occur within it. So following the triangle unifying element of the building, we actually came up with these 3 images of almost like when the curtain is pulled back when you're standing on stage looking out to the crowd. So whether it be a performance, a theater group, a solo group, anything along those lines. So where we've chosen 3 images to sort of emphasize and to sort of support what goes on within that space. Additionally, as you can see here, as I mentioned, it's a two-story graphic. You can see it from the upper balcony as well as the lower corridor area, the lobby area. There's smaller images of typical elements that you would see in performing arts and theater, as well as some additional text scattered throughout to further support the visual and performing arts. So I believe that is it for tonight. So if there's any questions on any of this, I know we jumped around and answered a bunch, but if there's any more, I can definitely address them now.
So a couple of things. One of is just tangentially related. Our signage is all in English, right? And I don't think that's inappropriate for a high school setting. All of our signage right now is in English, except for maybe the exception of the foreign language classrooms. And certainly, I think there's an expectation that most of our student body are going to be proficient English speakers. Certainly, when they graduate from high school, we would expect that. That said, I think we do envision more community kind of involvement in visits to this building than we currently have in the current building, especially in the auditorium gymnasium spaces. I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to do something along the lines of like a phone app, right? That's kind of like You're Here, or you can swap out the languages and say, this part, whatever you're telling people by way of, the various screens and signs, you could tell them the same way on their phone. You just might be able to tell them in Portuguese or Spanish, just for example. So, I mean, that's kind of a pie in the sky thing. And I think probably, with technology being what it is, that's something that we can implement down the road if, the school department and the school committee at the time decide they want to take it on. But I think it's definitely something we want to kind of consider at least.
Nate, before you go on, that first screen that Justin showed us where they have the data, you can see, how much, what the cubic foot of fuel and everything else is being utilized. The word is coming off my, it's on the tip of my, but I'm sure there's one, that data screen you could, for Portuguese or Spanish, press 2 deal.
Yeah, right. Just
Hello?
that kind of thing, Gene, right? I mean, to the extent that we can incorporate elements like that. I'm sorry, Kathy, you're cutting it out.
She was just answering her phone. I muted her.
Oh, all right. Sorry. Yeah, to the extent that we can incorporate elements like that, especially Ben, if we can do it with a technology solution versus something that's fixed.
Yep. I actually, you say that, and it just thought, like, with all this vinyl in there, we could put vinyl QR codes on certain things if we wanted to have it a translation via app. Small QR just says translate this, and they scan it with an app, and it would translate it into whatever language that they wanted. Something like that we could certainly look into.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, we
could be down the road.
Fancier down the road, right? I mean, even augmented reality stuff isn't really all that out of the question, right? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Somebody had a question.
No. I thought you were done. So please continue.
The other piece that I had is I know we're not voting to approve the signage tonight, right?
No.
But there is an element on the school committee agenda tomorrow for action that does consider and vote at least a portion of the signage package that we just talked about.
If I could interrupt, Justin seemed to be shaking his head yes when you asked that question.
We are voting, Justin?
No, you're not voting tonight.
Oh, okay.
So yes meant no.
Oh.
Okay. I think that's the way it works in India, actually. But so, my question is this: one, why is that on the school committee docket? And two, what happens if the school committee takes a vote that's inconsistent with the presentation that we just saw? Which, I think their vote is specifically on the dedicated areas. I mean, I think we're looking at a presentation that says the dedicated areas are going to remain dedicated as they were. Does that need to be on a school committee docket?
So my answer as the only person here from the school committee, I can tell you that I learned of that being on the agenda when I saw the agenda. So I don't know why it's on there. It's listed as a building committee recommendation, but I definitely was not consulted by Mr. Chonas who put that on there. At least according to the agenda, it's under his name. And the weekly group reviewed this, and other than a few outstanding questions that we left with Justin and James, to look into, it was pretty much approved, like I said, without those adjustments. And then with the idea also was to bring it to this body for any, obvious, objections or concerns or what have you, which, some of the questions that came up and about color and so forth. But that's the extent of it. And, to your point, Nate, I would, as it's listed on that agenda, it says, to accept that naming at the recommendation of the building committee. Well, the building committee doesn't have the authority to recommend naming of spaces, and I really don't think I don't think we want to go down that path of per the district policy for naming. I think the overall sense was with AI3's assumption and lead based on precedence was it just goes over. So that's a long answer to say I have no idea why that's on the meeting tomorrow night, and it'll be asked.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, from a building committee perspective, we're all sitting here, we've been here on a month-to-month basis, and some even more than that, looking at every square inch of this building. I mean, I'm not really interested in the feedback of a school committee, 2/5 of which is lame duck at this point, you know, potentially making or encouraging changes to, you know, things that we've looked at and determined are correct for the building. So, I mean, I guess we'll wait and see what happens with that item tomorrow. But I mean, if there's a vote by the school committee to change, I'm going to come right back to this body and say, I want to push back on that because I don't think it's correct. I think what we saw tonight is the package, assuming that, you know, I've heard questions, I've heard a couple of comments and suggestions, but I certainly haven't heard anything along the lines of, no, throw that out and start over. Right. So I don't want to hear anything to that extent coming out of tomorrow's meeting, to be honest.
Yeah. No, like I said, my suggestion is going to be that it be removed, because just by the name, like I said, to ask the school committee to vote on the recommendation of the building committee for that specific action is against district policy if that action were even necessary. It definitely would not be at the building committee's recommendation.
Yeah, is it appropriate for us as the building committee to take a vote to take that off the agenda for tomorrow night?
No, I just have to, you know, I'll just address it tomorrow. Maybe I'll get an answer as to why it's even on there, because Mr. Jonas, like I said, I didn't get a phone call, so I don't know what the thought process was. I just, so I'll just.
Maybe we take a vote to not approve at this time.
I would like to interject just for a second. First off, I would like to express my pleasure at the creativity exhibited by Justin in his performance tonight and his exhibits. I thought they were terrific. I also think that he captured the history and tradition of Townie Pride, and especially in the maintaining of the honorees' names and the dedicated areas of the building. There was some uncertainty whether those names were going to carry over or not. And this exhibition tonight shows us that there really is no uncertainty. The fact that there was some uncertainty as to whether or not the individuals that have been honored by the community in the tradition of Townie Pride, that uncertainty caused some trepidation. I personally knew, worked for, and was a friend of each and every individual who was honored in the existing building. I knew them, broke bread with them, was their friend, and still am the friend of those that are still alive. I was related to one of them. Okay. And when there was uncertainty, it was presented that the school committee has a policy relative to the to signage and what signs are okay and which ones aren't. And because it was uncertain, this was before Justin's exhibit, I spoke with Mr. Jonas and said, you know, these individuals that are presently honored in our existing building deserve to remain being honored in the new building. And I requested, because it is a new policy that the school committee has relative to this, and I assumed that being a new policy, there hadn't been a precedent, and could it at least be put on the school committee docket and therefore be discussed.
So
now that we know that,
well,
where it is, and that AI3 has presented this beautiful signage package, and that the names are remaining, then possibly that issue could just be tabled. But there was no attempt being made to usurp the authority of this body. It was just, that is what the policy, what I believe the policy was, that the school committee determined that. Okay,
I'll have to respectfully disagree with the usurp thing, right? So let's call it as it is, and like me or don't like me, I speak my mind, and I try to stick to the actions as they rolled out. At the last walkthrough, you asked if the names were transferring, to which I said, I actually don't know, because I hadn't seen the package. I said, I don't know what the precedence, what the protocol is on that with the new building replacing an old, which seems to me like a fair question. It's shy of the desired automatic yes that too many have become accustomed to, but it was an honest answer, to which I said, you know what, why don't we, meaning one of us from the building committee or so forth, reach out to AI3, to which you said, do you mind if I do that? And I said, absolutely, why don't you do that? And then we received from James, in a timely manner, a response that basically said, in their experience, they've seen both. They've seen names transfer over, they've seen names, leave with the space. That was the last conversation that ever happened. So to say that there was, that there was any chance or whatever of these names not coming over is premature and without any basis, because there was never a follow-up conversation once we had the information that I specifically said when I was asked that I would like to see. Now, beyond that, the issue that I have is that's on the agenda as a building committee recommendation. Okay, there are only there's two chairs of the building committee that would present and speak on behalf of this building committee to recommend that. So it's premature to even state that, and anyone else doing that, it's out of it's definitely out of process. That being said, the school committee policy for naming, it's not a new policy, it's a revised policy. And what Mr. Chonas probably should have alerted you to is where these things are time sensitive, that naming policy requires 2 meetings. Okay, so that you have public opportunity to come in. You also have to declare, you have to show how those names, how those people are relevant to that specific space in that specific building, which is why I don't think we want the school committee to apply that policy to these names. We just take it and accept it as a transfer as AI3 has. Now, this conversation would have happened 2 weeks ago, or maybe a couple days after we got the information from James at AI3. But I can tell you that there was no conversation other than the phone call that I received from a council member about a week and a half ago on this issue, which that was the extent of it. So, this body definitely doesn't need to be, bored with the details, but in short, there was definitely a lack of follow through on the original conversation. Little disappointing and insulted with the way that it went down, but in any event, I think when we reviewed the packet earlier this week, I was extremely pleased with it, and everything seemed to be in line with common practice, which is when you and I spoke, I said I would like to know what the precedent is, and I'll explain myself even though I shouldn't have to. When we make decisions, I've got to be able to defend the decision. So on the day that you asked me, are those names transferring over? And I said, I don't know. Let me find that. We should probably find out what the precedent is. That allows me to explain why the actions are taken. To just say that they're transferring over because someone has a personal affinity for someone is not what I was elected to do, not what any of us were elected to do. So me trying to hold on to proper process and defendable practice is basically what led us to go in that direction. And unfortunately, you know, yourself and whoever else decided to go in another direction with, you know, personal contact. And, you know, again, had Mr. Chonis as the chair called me and said, hey, listen, as a building committee co-chair and a member of the school committee, what's your take on this? I would have then told him it's actually in the packet, and we probably don't want to do that because you do not want to go through the policy as it's written.
So
Okay, wait,
just hold up right there for
no.
1 second.
There's a few things that I need to address here. Number one, yes, we did a walkthrough and I asked you about the signing and you said you didn't think that the names would follow through. Okay. We followed up with two phone calls. There were two lengthy phone discussions that you and I had. But the whole gist of the matter was that as this debate began, I mentioned that going all the way back to the genesis of the new school building, when we were working and filling out the applications, and then when we got permission to go forward and try to pass a bond issue, that the issue of certain items would come up in discussion. And as members of the building committee, we would be asked certain questions regarding the future with the bond issue and the future of what this new building would entail. Would it have a pool? And in these informal discussions, we said, no, you know, due to the fact that there's no reimbursement on a pool, we will not have a swimming pool. Will there be will a clock tower stay? Because it's a tradition, it's history in East Providence. It's a unifying factor. It stands for county pride. Yes. Yes, the clock tower will remain. That was a promise that we gave to the public when we went out and asked them to commit to the extraordinary amount of money that they committed to. And the other question was, what about the names of these certain areas? Would those names carry over? And the answers, even in the public meeting at East Providence High School in the auditorium, the answer was absolutely. It wasn't, we'll think about it, we don't know the precedent. The answer was absolutely. And as a member of the committee, that was my word. When people in the public asked me questions regarding this, that was my word. And when I heard there was uncertainty, well, my word is not uncertain. My word is my bond. And I
But your word was
go
to
back
call me
on
back
that.
once we got the information from James, so that didn't happen.
No,
Yeah,
no, because once we got the
Yeah.
information from James,
we never
he
spoke.
told me not to contact you anymore.
No, that was after you went,
No,
and then I got a call.
no.
Okay,
No.
Manny,
Joe.
please, again, do we want to, so when I got a call from Bob Roderick, who told me that you contacted Millie Morris.
Well, that's not correct either.
Well, then talk, I'm just, listen, I have nothing.
Joel, why don't I call you and you and I can have this discussion?
Okay, but don't put me out, don't go out on public and put me out of turn, because you and I never spoke after James's response. And my email to you was after I got a call from Bob Roderick, who got a call from Millie Morris, who got a call from you.
No, she did not.
Well, then take that up with Bob. So here we are.
Can I just ask that
Please.
An issue to me is that we have an item on the docket tomorrow for which there is a vote schedule, which, you know, Joel, as you say, your recommendation will be that gets tabled. That said, it's on there now. There is no official building committee recommendation related to the signage. We don't have a vote scheduled. I don't think it would be appropriate for us to take a vote because we don't have one on the docket. What I offer is this. Is it fair to say that there's consensus among the building committee members on this package that we saw tonight? If we were to make a recommendation to the building committee, to the school committee, it would be to accept this package as is, to include the dedications. Does anybody feel differently from what I just said?
No.
I am 100% in favor of that.
So then, may I ask, and I don't know, Joel, because I don't know if I'm going to be available for the meeting tomorrow night. I know that you'll be there. May I ask that you just, convey that to the school committee? So in case, I'm just concerned that there's last minute shenanigans and votes taking place.
So, right. No, and to your point, Nate, absolutely. So again, my intended communication to the school committee is that this package was reviewed and approved by the building committee, and it's an information. It's not up for a vote, just like any other decision in this building process, because again, these are things that are going out, for production and scheduling. So that's why we wanted to get this before this body so that we could do its job and do our job. And if there were any red flags, speak now or forever hold your peace kind of deal. But it will be reported tomorrow to the school committee. And actually, there's a plan, and I've got to follow up with Sam, but the intent was to have, during my building committee update, to have a portion of what Justin showed us presented to the school committee so that they will see what we looked at and have an idea of what's going on. But absolutely no need for a vote. And again, the way it's listed on the docket would imply that it went through the policy as it's stated, which we don't need to do, and in my opinion, don't want to do, so that we can preserve what's there and keep it moving forward in a timely fashion.
I would agree in toto.
Can I ask this? This is the first night that I've seen this graphic report, and it's very thorough. It's very good. There are minor things that may be tweaked. Does that mean that we can't tweak them, Nate, if we go forward with what you just said?
Yeah.
And let me give you an example. You talked about using photographs of athletes over the last 5 years, but we're not sure whether we can use them or should we use them all the way back 20, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago to show the history of East Providence athletics, that kind of thing. Are those things non-reviewable after this meeting?
No, and I think I think exactly to the point of, we do not want to vote fixing some set of things in place right now, right? I mean, we want the schedule to drive that. We want the voice of this building committee to drive that. I think we did point out a couple of tweaks, if you will, Bob, that, things we might like to see a little bit different that don't necessarily throw the whole package off the table.
I think the overall graphic package is a good package.
Right.
I think the overall design intent that Justin has put forward is a good one. I like the spatial quality. I like the colors. I like the things that they've put forward. But there's always going to be tweaking. And I just wonder if you're saying that, yes, we're agreeing with the package, but it allows for these minor modifications. I'm not talking about the naming of the various physical elements. I'm not talking about that.
So yeah, I guess I would change that consensus question as to, we have a general consensus on the package with the understanding that there will continue to be slight modifications moving forward. We do not, under any circumstances, want a school committee vote fixing this thing in concrete right now.
Justin, what do you, from a timeline as far as, this going out? So to Bob's point with, whether it's a matter of, and actually you said you guys spoke about the use of certain photos, what's that time frame, for that example where photos can be swapped out if need be or desired?
Yeah, so obviously schedule critical. Everything is tied to the schedule. We do have a little bit of time for some of these elements. For instance, like the photos and stuff, we can take a quick look at that. We don't have a lot of time to, say, reinvent the overall design intent. And by the sounds of it, that's not what I'm hearing. It's more so just replacing some of the photos, or for instance, making sure that the letters at the gym track are white, not gray or red, stuff like that. So that is minimal, and we can definitely accommodate that. We just can't holistically change designs and anything along those lines. So with that, the purpose of this is for an update. It would be my hope that we would be able to make these tweaks and not necessarily need to present to you for approval, that we can make these tweaks and then send out for fabrication. Like I said, we won't be holistically changing things by all means, but just updating any of these tweaks. So
like I said, with the example of the photos, what kind of time frame, if we start hitting that this week, which
Yep.
I would imagine, I think you're already, talking to that. So what are we at for this example?
yeah, I would honestly have to take a look at the overall schedule. Gilbane and the signage contractor have laid out dates of when they need these actual digital files. So we're working with them to get the files that they need, because obviously there's manufacturing time. So off the top of my head, for those files, I couldn't answer.
Sure.
But this
Okay.
is something, a lot of these changes from what I'm hearing are relatively minor as far as design work goes. Not necessarily impact, but design work. So I think if we can track down photos and stuff like that, we can push through relatively quickly to get the signs updated for fabrication as needed.
And we can cross-reference that against schedule too, like Justin is saying.
Yeah.
We can talk to Gilbane tomorrow about that.
All right. And yeah, and I'll speak with Sam tomorrow, after, before, or later in the day.
If we were to set an agenda item for the very next meeting and say, okay, no kidding, now we're final, right? We can talk about those things that, hey, maybe, we might want to tweak a little bit here or there. Talk about the impact of those, whether they have cost or schedule impacts, determine on whether or not we want to do them. Would that next meeting date, assuming that it's going to be again on the Monday immediately prior to the school,
That's too late.
is that too late?
Yeah, because I think we're looking at like a week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as it was, when we looked at this last week, Nate, they were kind of ready to say, all right, the group has looked at it, we're ready to go, and that's where Kathy and I said, let's bring this before the building committee for any final vetoes. And it was kind of an extension of really the timeline that they were looking to, start to run with. Sam, is that I see Justin's nodding.
Yep.
Sam,
That's
you want
accurate.
to confirm that?
Yeah, I think, time is of the essence. But, I think we could probably, tomorrow morning, we can confirm what that cutoff date is and what things might be able to linger, to Justin's point, and then let everybody know.
Would it be possible that we could request it, just when those modifications are made, we just see the slide deck and then just a list of the changes with, updated imagery and anything that you guys are updating just via email, so that we could just give it a thumbs up?
Yeah, we certainly, I don't want to speak for Justin, but I think we could reissue, Ben. I just don't know what the protocol is for the committee as far as
So we'll talk about this tomorrow morning and decide, and maybe people can send us some of the upticks, bullet it within a 24-hour period or so. And so they'll have that to work from and decide on a date tomorrow. Okay?
I think that works. Does that work, Bob? Is that?
What if we, whether it be under Kathy or whoever it be under Justin, small group of the building committee members that are interested in this, have another Zoom real quick in a day or two, whatever it takes to meet the schedule, just to talk about this and give Justin that input. So it's not a committee of 12 people trying to make a graphic design decision.
Well, do we leave it up to the subcommittee on their Tuesday meetings?
Yeah, that was my, thought here, right? So we kind of have a couple of items that the group has asked us to, or asked Justin to, get information on. So, if something can be dug up between, Justin and the resources that are available, and we can review that in short order, knowing the intention. I think it's pretty clear what the intentions are. So, with the trust of this group, we would continue like we have with that small group on this.
On this
Piece as
particular
well.
item, could you add me into that
Joel?
small group? I'd love to be a part of the discussion.
Sure, we can find a way. If it's a matter of numbers for quorum, we can find a way. I can contact you offline with some information to review as well, Bob. I would
That'd be fine.
absolutely.
Joel, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
I've kept my mouth shut the whole time, which is a rare
Thank
for
you.
me. Yeah. I understand the urgency of getting this done, but there's also, because there are pieces that have to be incorporated into construction, like the signage that has to go in the second pane of the windows and all of that stuff. So there's a priority of stuff that has to be done and stuff that is still 9 months away. And I understand graphics and I understand all that. There's a lot that has decisions that have to be made. So if there is some indecision on this package in any way, Justin could tell us the components that are built into construction that have to be decided right away. And we can get those taken care of. And if need be, if there's still a couple of components that there's still some discussion about, it sounds like those are more applied components that are inside the building. We don't even have finished walls yet to be putting this stuff on. So I don't think we want to rush into something just because of some deadline to make graphics. And graphics don't take 9 months to make. Stuff involved with construction and stuff that are built into window systems, yes. So, Justin, if you could just kind of take a look at that and prioritize the items that may have to be decided right away, and then items that could stretch a little bit, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at that. Now that I have an idea of what signs you guys are commenting on, I can sort of highlight those and see where the actual drop dead date is for those.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't want to belabor this. Yeah,
Yep.
I don't want to make this any more difficult than it is, but I also want to make sure that everybody is heard and everybody that has a comment on it are not shut out, and that that we attack the things that have to be done right away. And we've got some time, but again, stuff has to get decided. The more things we get decided, we move to the next thing. So that was all.
So what was interesting about these issues, graphics is the least substantial in terms of construction, physical construction, but for many of the viewers, many of the people that will be there, it'll make a big impression on what the graphics is versus the construction of the wall, the joints of the window panes, and a number of other things. And so I think Steve's comments are well taken.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so then to summarize that item, we're going to look for that information from Justin over the next few days or so. Take the appropriate action for the procurement subgroup, if you will, to finalize that up with some input from some of the folks who want to provide some input. To Steve's point, we're going to focus first on those most time-sensitive, time-critical matters. And if there is an opportunity to defer some of the others, we will do that. But certainly we'll do so with an understanding that everything has to be buttoned up here in the near future. I catch that right? Okay. All right. So sounds like we're done with AE update. Thank you, Justin. I don't know if you have anything to contribute to the other items. You're welcome to stick around or to jet as need be.
Justin, is it yourself or James joining us tomorrow evening?
Tomorrow evening?
Yeah, same degree.
It is Jim, I believe.
Jim. I know I was calling him James.
James, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
believe, but I'll check and make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. With that, I'm going to head out. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Everyone.
Okay. Next item is to consider and vote to approve invoices for services. Craig, I guess this is your show at this point. You want to take it away?
Yep, I'll take it away. Invoices, AI3 basic services, $122,474.84. Gilbane Building Company, $7,571,212.01. Peregrine Group LLC, $59,000. Stephen Turner Inc., $3,110.25, and Thilsch Engineering for October and November, $8,736.38, for a grand total of $7,764,533.48.
I move passage of those invoices as submitted.
Chairman, I second that.
Got a motion and a second. All approved.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Just a quick question again, that is going to come before the school committee for a vote tomorrow? Okay. All right.
Yes.
And I know I keep asking that, but I completely lost
Chairman,
it. City
Mr.
council doesn't
Chairman.
say anymore.
I'd like to also move passage of the minutes of the previous meeting. if That's appropriate.
Was that a motion? I'm sorry, sir.
Yes, to
All
move
right.
passage of the minutes of the previous meeting.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the minutes from the 9 November meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Next item is the next meeting date. The next school committee meeting is,
So, all right, so that meeting's probably going to be backed up because of the inauguration is scheduled, I believe, for the 12th, correct, Kathy? According to the charter, Sharon, right? Per the charter?
No, I don't think we have to back it up.
Yeah.
It's the first Tuesday after the first Monday
Right.
that to be sworn in. So the first Tuesday is,
7th.
Right. First Tuesday after, oh, so the 5th, you're saying?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay, all right.
the school
Okay.
committee on that date.
Okay, so that's just what, so anyway, so then our school committee will be on the 12th, which would put the building committee on the 11th.
Yep.
The day before. Okay, thank you. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
all right, so we're gonna meet for January 6:30 again
Mhm.
on Zoom. What do I-
What do you say, 4? No, it's 11. January.
Oh, sorry, 11 Jan. I just put in 4 into my calendar.
And it's a little crazy that I'm starting to follow your military.
Never goes away.
believe
Yeah,
Sandy
I
has
know.
it already in.
See, look it. See, it never goes away. So yeah, what are we on now? Adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, motion from Superintendent Crowley, second. Anyone?
Second.
Sorry. All right, I see Gene. All right, so second from Mr. Oakland. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Stay safe.
Have a nice